That Christmas Eve in Ohio, the air cut through me like glass. My jacket was thin, useless against the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. I stood in front of the oak door, its polished surface glowing faintly under the porch light. In my hand, the phone still carried the warmth of my grandfather's voice. "Dorian, come over right now. I'm at your parents' new house," he had said. His tone had been rich with excitement, almost boyish, as if he was holding on to a secret he couldn't wait to share. Grandpa Will, the man who built an empire out of concrete and steel in Chicago. He was rarely home, rarely present, always buried in work and contracts. But tonight, on this freezing night, he was here. That thought alone made me smile, even as my fingers stiffened in the cold. I pushed open the door. The warmth of the fireplace rushed to greet me, wrapping around me like an embrace I hadn't known I needed. The smell of roasted meat lingered in the air, heavy and comforting. At the head of the long dining table sat my grandfather. His eyes lit up when they found mine, sparkling the way stars look on the clearest winter nights. He stood, reached for me, and held me so tightly that his familiar woody cologne washed away every ounce of fatigue I carried. "Dorian, do you like this house?" His voice carried pride, as though he had just placed a crown in my hands. "Yes, it's beautiful, Grandpa," I said carefully, keeping my tone steady. "But it's my parents' house." The silence that followed wasn't just silence. It was thunder held back, the world holding its breath. My grandfather's face stiffened. His gaze flickered, first to me, then to my father, Gregory, and finally to Susan, my stepmother, who sat stiff across the table. My father's calm veneer cracked. His face paled. His hand trembled as the wine glass shivered between his fingers. Susan coughed, her lips forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I saw the panic hiding there, like a shadow behind glass. "Your parents' house?" Grandpa repeated. His voice turned sharp, cold, a blade cutting through the room.
"Dorian,
explain yourself." I froze. I didn't understand. A surge of unease rose inside me, pressing against my ribs. My eyes darted toward my father, waiting, begging for him to speak. He only lowered his head, shame flooding the space between us. Before I could make sense of it, Susan's voice broke in, trembling, desperate. "Will, there must be some misunderstanding. This is the family's house." But Grandpa didn't look at her. He looked at me, and in his eyes I knew a secret was about to bleed out into the open. "My name is Dorian Marston, and this is not just a memory. It's the story of how I lived years swallowed by injustice, pushed aside by the very people who were supposed to protect me. If you've ever felt like you didn't belong anywhere, like you were a stranger in your own home, maybe you'll understand. And if you haven't, I still need you to hear this. This is the story of a boy marked by scars no one could see, and how he searched for light in the thickest darkness. I was born in a small town in Ohio, the kind where autumn painted the streets gold and neighbors knew each other's names. But in my family, warmth was scarce. My mother, Diana, died giving birth to me. Complications. I never understood the details. All I knew was that she was the one light I never got to meet. My father, Gregory, was a stern man. He looked at me as if my very existence was a wound that refused to close. When I was 3, he remarried. Susan entered our lives, a woman with a smile that never warmed and eyes that calculated every move. Not long after, she gave birth to Benjamin.
Ben,
the golden boy. Ben became the son my father and Susan orbited around. To my father, he was the pride and the future of our name. To Susan, he was everything, her treasure, her mission, her crown jewel. And me? I was the shadow in the corner, the unwanted child who carried the wrong blood. Even as a child, I felt it. When I was 5, I watched from the living room corner as Ben tore open the box of a shiny remote-controlled car, the kind every boy dreamed about. My gift that year? A scratched-up plastic car with wheels that barely turned. "Good enough for you," my father had said. Susan chimed in. "Ben needs new things to develop his intellect." The words burned even though they were said casually, like I didn't deserve anything more. When I brought home perfect grades, my father barely looked at me. Not bad, he'd say. Don't get complacent. But when Ben managed AC, the entire house erupted in celebration. You'd think he had just discovered fire. I wasn't jealous. Not really. I didn't want his toys or his attention. I just wanted to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be loved once. But every day reminded me I wasn't enough. Susan's words echoed like a mantra meant to break me. Why can't you be more like Ben? Or worse, you should be grateful to live in this house. Grateful. As though my place under their roof was charity, not birthright. Our family wasn't poor. My father managed at a local insurance firm. Susan stayed home, pouring all her energy into grooming Ben as if he were royalty. I was reminded constantly that I was lucky to be there at all. Lucky. Yet the walls of that house never felt like mine. My room was in the attic, a cramped space with a sagging bed and a small window that stared out into an alley no one cared about. Meanwhile, Ben's room was a kingdom. Toys stacked high, posters of rock bands plastered across wide walls. Once, I asked my father why I couldn't move into one of the rooms downstairs. His face turned stone. Don't ask for too much, Dorian. Know your place. Those words became the script of my childhood. My place. A reminder, over and over, that I was an afterthought in my own family. Still, I learned to survive. I taught myself to smile, to pretend I was fine. But inside, a storm raged. A quiet rebellion. I told myself that one day, I would escape this house. I would break the chains they wrapped around me. I would prove that I was not the useless, unwanted boy they believed I was. At 18, I graduated high school with solid grades. No one noticed. No one cared. But that night, standing in my attic room, diploma in hand, I promised myself, this would not be the end of my story. I always dreamed of college. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to build something solid, something real. More than anything, I wanted to make Grandpa proud, the only person who ever looked at me with belief in his eyes. But that dream didn't last long. One night, I gathered the courage to ask my father about scholarships, about loans, about anything that could help me take that step. He didn't even hesitate. He looked at me with those cold, hollow eyes. Dorian, we don't have the money. Ben needs to be prioritized. He has potential. We have to invest in him. The words landed like a hammer. My chest tightened. My legs felt like they would give way. Ben, the same brother who spent his days glued to video games, drifting with friends, aimless, was the one chosen to fulfill his potential. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just nodded, turned, and walked away. That night, lying on my old bed in the attic, staring at the cracked ceiling, I whispered a vow to myself. If my father wouldn't believe in me, I would believe in me. If they wouldn't build me up, I'd climb on my own. I took a job at Walmart. First a cashier, then in the stockroom. Long nights. Endless holidays behind a counter. Customers who tested my patience at every turn. I was exhausted. But I endured. Every dollar was a brick in the escape I was building. Eventually, I rented my own apartment. It was small, worn down. The walls stained yellow, the faucet dripping at all hours. But it was mine. My space. A place where Susan's sneers and my father's disappointed glares couldn't reach me. Meanwhile, Ben lived a different life. He went to a private school. He drove a shiny new car, a gift from our father. He never worked a single day. One evening, Susan walked into the Walmart where I worked. She saw me behind the cashier counter. Her lips curled into that familiar, sharp smirk. Dorian, this is what you're doing? Such a shame. Ben will never have to lower himself like this. I forced a smile. My jaw ached from holding back the scream that burned inside me. Why him? Why always him? Why wasn't I worthy of the same chances? Those years were heavy with loneliness. I had no close friends. I was always working, always saving, always surviving. But I wasn't completely alone. There was Grandpa. He was my anchor. From Chicago, between his projects and deadlines, He'd call me whenever he could. Those calls were my lifeline. He'd tell me about the buildings he was raising from steel and stone. He'd ask about my life. And always, before hanging up, he'd say, "Dorian, you're strong. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I never told him the truth about my father or Susan. I didn't want to burden him. And deep down, I feared that if I admitted my pain, he might see me as weak. Grandpa was the one who spoke of my mother. He told me Diana was gentle. She loved books. She believed in fairness. He confessed that he still blamed himself for not being there when she gave birth. That work had kept him away. His voice would falter when he said it. If I had been there, maybe things would have been different. I never blamed him. I just wished I had met her, even once, to know I had been loved. The years passed. I became self-reliant. I fixed leaky pipes. I taught myself to cook simple meals. I learned to quiet the ache in my chest. But the emptiness never left me. That hollow space of not truly belonging, of growing up without a real family. I didn't know then that my father and Susan were hiding something. A secret big enough to shatter everything I thought I knew. At 21, I was still in that cramped apartment on the south side of town, working night shifts at the supermarket. My days blurred into the same routine, mornings that felt empty, meals I barely tasted, sleep always cut short. But at least I had something that was mine. Freedom. A fragile sense of dignity, paid for by endurance. Then one afternoon, while running employee checkout, my phone buzzed. A text. From Susan. Come to the new house tonight. Address. 1432 Hollow Creek.
Small party.
I stared at the screen, reading it over and over as if the words would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. New house? I'd heard nothing about them moving.
No mention. No invitation.
And certainly, no one had asked if I wanted to live with them. Part of me wanted to delete the message, to act like it never came. But another part, some quiet, stubborn corner of my heart, told me to go. Maybe this was my chance. Maybe we could reconnect. Even if it was just a polite evening, I wanted to stand there and show them that I wasn't the sullen boy in the attic anymore. I had changed. Maybe, just maybe, they had too. I stopped at a liquor store near work, picked up a bottle of affordable red wine. Then I went to a small embroidery shop to collect the gift I'd ordered, a handkerchief with the initials GM stitched into the corner. It wasn't much, but it was thoughtful. It carried meaning. The new house was on the west side, a neighborhood I'd never stepped into before. As I drove down streets lined with young maple trees and manicured lawns, I felt like I was trespassing in another world. Two-story homes stood side by side, elegant and precise. Wooden doors, gray roofs, red brick steps, everything polished, everything new. Finally, I stopped in front of the address Susan had sent. A cream-colored house with arched windows, a broad porch, and a stone-stepped yard. It looked like something pulled from a magazine. I stepped out of my car, bottle in one hand, gift in the other. For a moment, I just stood there on the porch, staring at the door. My chest was tight. My pulse quickened. I didn't know what I would find inside. But I knew this night would matter. For reasons I couldn't explain, my heart was hammering before I even touched the door. It wasn't excitement. It was something darker. A pressure deep in my chest, like I was about to cross a threshold into a life that didn't belong to me. Susan opened the door. She wore a silk dress that shimmered under the warm light. Her makeup was flawless, layered with care, but her smile, thin, rehearsed, barely touched her eyes. "Oh, Dorian."
Come in.
I stepped inside. The house radiated wealth, every corner polished and intentional. Wooden floors gleamed under the chandelier. A granite fireplace commanded the room, beige armchairs neatly arranged as though no one had ever dared to sit in them. On the walls, family photos already hung in perfect frames. My father and Susan smiling at their wedding. Ben clutching a sports trophy, triumphant. But none of me. Not one picture. I wasn't surprised. In the kitchen, my father stood in a crisp white shirt, twisting open a bottle of wine. He looked at me, gave a single nod.
Oh.
"You're here."
No items. No welcome.
I handed him the bottle of wine and the small gift I'd brought. Congratulations on the new house, Dad. He took them without looking, set them down on the counter, and turned away. The party wasn't really a celebration. A handful of people filled the living room, new neighbors, an older couple, one of my father's colleagues. They spoke animatedly about mortgages, property values, backyard pools. I sat in the corner, invisible, a glass of water in my hand while they raised their glasses of wine. Susan's voice floated across the room. We searched forever to find this place. We were so lucky to close before prices jumped. Gregory has such an eye for houses. My father smiled at the praise. He didn't correct her. He didn't admit whose eye had really found this home. I tried to smile, too. Tried to convince myself I was happy for them. Not for the granite or the chandeliers, but because I thought maybe they'd finally found something to fill their emptiness. I didn't know then that I was congratulating them for stealing what had been meant for me. That night, I returned to my little apartment. I reached for my phone to text Grandpa, to tell him I'd survived the evening. But I stopped. He was busy, always busy. And he was getting older. I didn't want to trouble him. I set the phone down, lay back, stared at the cracked ceiling until sleep pulled me under. I had no idea the truth was lying just beneath me, like a bomb waiting for its fuse. After that housewarming, life slid back into its usual rhythm, or what passed for rhythm in my world. Nobody mentioned the new house again. Nobody asked me what I thought of it. Nobody asked if I wanted to live there. But something began to shift. Subtle at first. Strange. From that point on, every holiday came with an invitation. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Ben's birthday, even my father and Susan's anniversary. Always the same type of message. Curt, impersonal. 6 p.m. Come for dinner. Ben's looking forward to seeing you. We have guests. Be on time. I went. Not because I believed they had changed, but because I still believed in duty. In the faint, desperate obligation of being a son. Every time, I carried a small gift. Chosen with care. Wrapped by hand. And every time, my gift was placed aside, unopened, unacknowledged. And then came the strangest thing of all. They started pulling me into family photos. The first time was Christmas. Susan called out, "Dorian, come stand closer to Ben. We're taking a family picture." I froze, but I stepped forward. My father stood tall in the center, his arm draped over Ben's shoulders. I lingered at the edge, forcing a smile. When the camera clicked, it felt like a play staged for strangers, and I was the extra added to balance the frame. After that, it became routine. Every gathering, they pulled me in. Sometimes the whole family. Sometimes just my father and me. Once, Susan even placed her hand on my shoulder and smiled brightly, as though we had always been close. I didn't understand it. My face had never hung on the walls of the old house. I had been erased from every memory. So why now? Why this sudden performance? I asked once, casually, after Ben's birthday dinner. Why so many family photos all of a sudden? Susan laughed lightly, waving it off. We just want to capture memories. You're part of the family too, aren't you? I nodded. But the weight in my chest grew heavier. I wasn't naive. Something was off. I couldn't name it, but I felt it. Like I was being arranged, molded into a frame that wasn't mine. Cast as the dutiful son in pictures that weren't meant for me, staged for reasons I couldn't see. And then, on Christmas, when I was 23, the curtain finally tore. The day was bitterly cold. I had finished a shift at work, sipping cheap coffee in my apartment, debating whether to arrive late like always. My plan was simple: show up, smile, eat a little, pose for a few photos, and leave. Then my phone rang. Grandpa's name lit the screen. "Dorian, come over right now. I'm at your new house. 1432 Hollow Creek. I wanted to surprise you." I froze. My breath caught. Grandpa was here? In Ohio? He almost never left Chicago. His construction empire kept him chained there. I threw on my jacket and rushed out the door, my mind spiraling. Why hadn't he told me? And why was he at my father's house? When I pulled up, The house glowed under strings of Christmas lights. A wreath hung on the door. The Christmas tree shimmered through the window. It looked like a postcard. I knocked, heart pounding against my ribs. The door opened. Susan stood there, her smile faltering the moment she saw me. "Dorian, what are you?" Susan's voice trailed off, her eyes flicking past me toward the living room. And then I heard it, that familiar voice. "Dorian, come in, my boy."
Grandpa.
I stepped forward, and there he was, standing tall under the chandelier. His silver hair gleamed in the golden light, his frame still strong, commanding, like a man who had spent a lifetime building his world brick by brick. His presence filled the room. He wrapped me in a hug. Firm.
Tight.
Not just affection, but urgency. Excitement wrapped in something heavier, something unspoken. "I wanted to surprise the whole family," he said, glancing around with a proud smile. "This house, it's wonderful, isn't it? Are you happy living here?" The words froze me in place. My throat tightened. I hesitated, every instinct screaming that this moment wasn't safe. I don't live here, Grandpa. I just visit." The room shifted instantly. His smile vanished. His eyes sharpened, narrowing as they cut from me to my father. My father stood near the fireplace, a glass of wine in hand, suddenly smaller under Grandpa's gaze. Susan jumped in fast, her voice coated in sugar. "Will, there must be some kind of misunderstanding. Dorian likes living independently, don't you, dear?" Her eyes locked on mine, commanding me to nod. But Grandpa wasn't looking at her. His gaze stayed on me, steady and sharp. His voice dropped lower, colder.
"Dorian.
Tell me the truth. You don't live here?" The weight of the room pressed down on me. I took a deep breath.
"No.
I live in a rented apartment, south side of town. I cover the rent with my supermarket wages." Silence. It was suffocating. Like the air itself had been drained from the room. My father lowered his head, gripping his glass tighter. Susan tried to speak again, her voice trembling. "Will, we thought it was best for Dorian. He wanted independence. And Ben needs space." Enough. Grandpa's voice sliced through her words like a blade. "Gregory, explain yourself. 2 years ago, I sent you $400,000. I told you to buy a 3-bedroom house in this neighborhood. A gift. For Dorian. I was crystal clear. That house was for him. So why," his voice thundered now, "why is he rotting in a rundown apartment while you live here?" My father's face drained white. He said nothing. Susan's lips parted, but no sound came out. My mind reeled. A house? For me? $400,000? I turned to Grandpa, searching his face for some clue that this was a mistake. Then to my father, waiting for him to deny it, to tell me I'd misunderstood. But no words came. Finally, my father set his glass down, his voice shaky, clinging to composure. "I thought the house would be better used by all of us. Dorian's independent. He doesn't need a place this big. Ben's young. He needs an environment to grow, to study." "Doesn't need," Grandpa roared, stepping closer, his fury rattling the air. "You dare say he doesn't need it? Dorian, my grandson, Diana's son, he's barely scraping by, and you tell me he doesn't deserve the very gift I entrusted you with." His eyes burned. "What did you do, Gregory? You put the deed in your own name, didn't you?" My father's shoulders sagged. He couldn't meet his father-in-law's eyes. He trembled in silence. Susan found her voice, desperate. "Will, you don't understand. Dorian isn't my biological son. Ben is the future of this family. Dorian, he doesn't deserve." "Shut up." Grandpa's roar shook the walls. His anger thundered through the room. "Doesn't deserve? Dorian is my blood. My daughter's son. My grandson. I trusted you, Gregory. I gave you everything so you could protect him. And what did you do? You stole from him. You tricked me with these staged photos." His finger stabbed toward the framed family picture on the wall, the one where I stood stiff, awkward, at the edge of the frame. "I thought he lived here. I believed the smiles in those photos.
But it was all a lie."
All to cover your greed." My chest burned. The photos, the endless invitations, the staged smiles. It all clicked into place.
None of it had been about me. It was all theater for Grandpa.
I looked at my father,
I wanted him to say something.
to look me in the eye, to admit what he'd done, to apologize. But he stayed silent, head bowed, eyes down. Grandpa turned to me, his voice softer but still iron.
Dorian.
Go get your things. You're coming with me. To Chicago. This house will be yours, as I intended. And Gregory, his jaw clenched. I'll be speaking to my lawyer. You'll answer for this. Susan broke into sobs. Crocodile tears, loud and hollow. My father finally spoke, his voice cracked, broken. Dorian, I only wanted what was best for the family. Best for the family? My voice was calm, cold. You never once saw me as part of this family. I spent my life trying to earn your pride. But all you ever saw was Ben. You stole from me. And you didn't even bother to tell me the truth. I couldn't look at him anymore. I turned away. Grandpa's hand pressed firmly onto my shoulder. His grip carried both sorrow and resolve. Let's go, Dorian. You don't need to stay here another minute. The door opened. The icy Christmas air bit my skin as we stepped outside. Behind me, the house glowed warm with lights. The house that should have been mine. Street lamps lit the snow-covered road, their glow dim and yellow. My breath rose in sharp clouds as I followed Grandpa to the black SUV parked at the curb. The driver, dressed in a sharp suit, stepped out and opened the back door. To the hotel first, Grandpa said, his voice low but unshakable. I slid into the leather seat beside him. The door shut, sealing me inside. It felt like crossing a line I could never return from, a shift into a world I never believed I belonged to. Are you okay, Dorian? Grandpa's voice was soft, but his eyes, sharp, searching, cut deeper than words. He wasn't just asking. He was peeling back my silence, trying to read every thought I was too afraid to say. I swallowed, my throat dry. I don't know, Grandpa. Everything's happening so fast. I can't even process it. My voice cracked, hollow from exhaustion. He placed a steady hand on my knee, grounding me. I know, but listen to me. From this moment forward, things will be different. You're coming to Chicago with me. We'll start fresh. Just the two of us. I turned toward the window. Christmas lights flickered past in streaks of color, blurring like faint sparks against the darkness. My reflection looked back at me, tired, small, but carrying the faintest glimmer of hope. Chicago, the city I had only heard about in Grandpa's stories. The city where he built his empire, brick by brick, from nothing. I had never set foot there. I had never imagined I'd belong there. Yet somehow, that was where my life was about to begin again. A second chance. A way out of the shadows I'd lived under my whole life. The next morning came too soon. We boarded an early flight, the sky still gray with dawn. I sat by the window, watching the endless expanse of snow-dusted fields roll by beneath us. Each mile we left behind felt like shedding an old skin, leaving behind a world that had never wanted me. Grandpa sat beside me, calm as ever, buried in a business newspaper. Every so often, he lowered it, stealing a glance at me with a faint smile that said more than words. Encouragement, reassurance. When the plane touched down at O'Hare, the cold Chicago wind slammed against us the moment we stepped outside. It was sharp, biting, different from the Ohio cold. This was a wind that belonged to a city alive with power. James, Grandpa's driver, waited by the familiar black SUV. He nodded respectfully, then whisked us away through streets lined with steel and glass that rose higher than I'd ever seen. Skyscrapers towered above us, reflecting the winter sun like frozen giants. Ohio, with its modest homes and narrow streets, felt like another universe now. We drove through neighborhoods that shifted from busy urban blocks to quiet, tree-lined avenues. Finally, the car slowed before an iron gate that loomed high and regal. Beyond it, a long driveway curved toward a mansion that looked like something from another lifetime. Stone pillars, perfectly trimmed lawns, Even rose bushes in bloom, defiantly red against the snow. My jaw fell open. My voice shook. This is your house, Grandpa? He laughed, clapping me on the shoulder with a warmth that cut through the cold. Welcome home, Dorian. This isn't just my house anymore. It's yours too. The front doors swung open into a world I didn't know existed outside of movies. A grand foyer stretched before me, marble floors polished to a mirror shine. A spiral staircase wound upward like something from a palace. Abstract paintings adorned the walls, each one carrying weight and meaning I couldn't grasp. The living room itself was larger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a winter garden with a pool shimmering under the pale light. Even the air smelled different. Pine, leather, a hint of fresh polish. It felt less like a house and more like stepping into another world. I clutched my small, worn bag tighter against my chest. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Grandpa replied, guiding me upstairs. He stopped at a door and opened it wide. This is yours. Inside was a bedroom I couldn't have dared to dream of. A king-size bed dressed in soft linens. A walnut desk with a brand-new laptop waiting. A thick rug spread across the floor. The window opened to a view of the garden below, glowing under the snow. This is where you start over. No wait.
No burdens.
Just a clean slate. I sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress sinking beneath me, still holding onto my old life in the form of that single bag. Only hours before, I'd been in a dingy apartment with peeling paint and a leaky faucet. Now I was here, but awe couldn't fully silence the ache gnawing at me. That house in Ohio, the one meant to be mine, still burned in the back of my mind like a wound that refused to heal. That evening, Grandpa took me into the city. We sat tucked away in a quiet corner of a restaurant so refined it felt intimidating. Candlelight flickered across our table, catching the edges of the glassware. He ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than a month's wages at the supermarket. I lifted the glass, took one careful sip, then set it down. The taste of luxury was foreign, almost bitter. Grandpa's face shifted. His eyes darkened. His voice lowered. Dorian, we need to talk. About your father. About the house. About everything. My chest tightened. I nodded, bracing myself. 2 years ago, he began slowly. I sent Gregory $400,000. I told him to buy a house in Hollow Creek. It was a gift. For you. A foundation. A future. I couldn't be there to oversee it, so I trusted him to do it. I trusted him.
He paused.
His jaw clenched, anger flaring in his eyes. But I was wrong. The truth cut deeper than I expected. My fists curled under the table. So, Dad just kept the house for himself. Grandpa shook his head. It's worse than that. His voice grew thick, bitter. Since you were a child, I've been sending Gregory money. Not just for the house. Every year. For your school. For your clothes. For anything you needed to grow with dignity. To give you a chance. I thought he was taking care of you the way I asked him to. But when you told me about your tiny apartment, about the supermarket, I realized the truth. He kept it all. For himself. For his wife. For Ben.
It hit me like a blow to the chest.
School fees.
Clothes.
All the things I never had. The endless years of hand-me-downs, of skipping meals, of working night shifts until my body gave out. All of it unnecessary. My father had stolen not just money, but opportunities. My life could have been different. I didn't know. I whispered, my throat tight. I never knew about any of that money. Dad never told me. I thought we were broke. I thought it was up to me to survive. Grandpa slammed his hand against the table, the glasses rattling violently. His voice thundered low. Feral. That bastard. I trusted him. I trusted him with you. And he betrayed me. He betrayed your mother. The sound of her name, Diana, stabbed through me. My chest burned. My eyes blurred. I had never met her. She'd been gone before I could remember. But through Grandpa's stories, she lived in fragments, her gentleness, her dreams for me. the life she wanted me to have. And now I realized she too had been betrayed. The thought of my father stealing what was meant for me, what my mother and grandpa had dreamed for me, ignited a fire in my chest. It wasn't just anger. It was betrayal. It was the weight of every lonely night, every empty pocket, every mocking word Susan had thrown at me. "What are you going to do, Grandpa?" My voice was low, cautious, but inside, I already knew part of his answer. His eyes narrowed, cold as steel. "I'm going to sue Gregory. I'll make sure that house is transferred into your name. And after that, I'll cut him off completely. No more money. Not a single cent." The words hung heavy between us. I stared at the flickering candlelight on the table, silent.
A part of me wanted that.
To see my father crushed beneath the weight of justice. To watch him face the consequences he had dodged for so long. But another part, the part that had grown up tired, worn from carrying resentment like chains, just wanted peace. "Grandpa," my voice softened, steady but firm. "Don't sue him.
Please."
I know you're angry. I am too. But it's done. It's over. I don't want my new life here to drown in courtrooms and fights. Cutting him off, that's enough. Let him feel the emptiness without your support. Let that be his punishment. I just want to start fresh. With you." He searched my face. His eyes softened, though behind them I still saw the storm. "Are you certain, Dorian? That house was meant to be yours. You have every right to claim it." "I'm sure," I whispered. "The house doesn't matter anymore. My future does. I don't want to live trying to fix the past." He studied me for a long moment, then placed his hand on my shoulder. His voice broke with pride. "You're stronger than I thought. Your mother, she would be proud of you." The weeks that followed in Chicago felt like learning to breathe for the first time. I wasn't just moving into a mansion. I was moving into a new version of myself. Grandpa gave me more than a roof. He gave me the space to rediscover who I was without shame, without fear. He took me to his company, a tall glass tower in the heart of downtown Chicago. Inside, the offices buzzed with life. Phones ringing. Engineers bent over blueprints. Laughter breaking through the noise of industry. "This," Grandpa said, introducing me with pride, "is my grandson, Dorian." For the first time, I felt seen. Not as a burden. Not as an afterthought. But as someone who mattered. One afternoon, standing with him at a suburban construction site, I felt the wind whip against my face as I watched workers pour concrete and cranes swing steel into place. Grandpa turned to me. "Would you like to try working here? Not big responsibilities right away. Just small projects. Learn as you go." I hesitated. Construction was foreign to me. Blueprints, measurements, deadlines. All things I'd never imagined myself handling. But then I saw the trust in his eyes. The same trust I'd longed for my entire life. "I'll try, Grandpa," I said quietly. "I can't promise I'll be good at it. Not right away." He laughed, the sound warm and strong. "No one's good at the start. But you have heart. You have determination. That's worth more than skill." I started small, in the planning department, filing documents, tracking progress, shadowing project managers. The work was tough, demanding. But with every day, I learned. I studied blueprints until the lines started to make sense. I sat in meetings, taking notes until my hand cramped, and slowly, I began to offer ideas. At first, my colleagues saw me only as the boss's grandson. But as weeks passed, they noticed something else. I stayed late. I worked hard. I asked questions instead of pretending I knew answers. Respect grew. Not because of my name, but because of my effort. Outside of work, I explored Chicago like a man set free. I wandered down crowded streets lit with neon and energy. I stood in front of paintings in quiet museums. I spent hours in coffee shops with a book in my hand, finally tasting what it meant to have time to dream. For the first time in my life, I could breathe. I could imagine myself becoming someone new. But scars don't fade quickly. Some nights, lying in my new bed with its warm blankets and silence, I dreamed of my old apartment. The leaking faucet, Susan's mocking laugh, my father's cold stare. I woke wondering if I deserved this new life, or if it would all vanish like smoke. Grandpa noticed. He always noticed. One evening, as the fire crackled between us, he placed an old frame in my hands. Inside was a photograph of a woman I had never known but always longed for, my mother, Diana. Her smile was radiant, her arms cradling a small dog. She looked happy.
Alive. Whole.
She wanted you to be happy, Grandpa said softly. His voice broke. I failed her once. I wasn't there when she needed me, but I won't fail you. Not again. I held the frame tightly, my vision blurring with tears. I wish I could have met her, I whispered. You're more like her than you realize, he said, his gaze fixed on me. She was strong, but gentle. You carry her heart. The words washed over me like healing. For the first time, I felt a piece of the mother I never knew living inside me. That night, I began writing in a journal.
Thoughts. Fears.
Hopes. The pages became my mirror, my confession, my way of confronting the past instead of running from it. 3 months later, a letter arrived. The envelope bore no name, but the handwriting made my stomach twist. My father's. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a single page, the ink shaky, uneven. Dorian, I know I have no right to write this. What I've done is unforgivable. I was wrong to keep the house. Wrong to keep the money your grandfather sent. Losing your mother broke me, and I became a terrible father. I don't expect forgiveness, but I regret it.
Susan and Ben are gone.
I'm transferring the house to you, as your grandfather wanted. I hope one day you can look at me without disappointment. Gregory. I read the words once, then again, then a third time. My chest felt torn open. Anger.
Pain.
And somewhere buried beneath it all, a faint flicker of relief. Could I forgive him? I didn't know. Years of abandonment and cruelty couldn't be erased by a single page. But I also knew I didn't want to carry resentment forever. I showed the letter to Grandpa. He read it slowly, his face unreadable. Finally, he set it down. It's your decision, Dorian. If you want the house, I'll stand beside you. If not, I'll respect your choice. I thought of Hollow Creek. The house with its green lawn, its fireplace glowing in the winters. Once it had been my dream. Now, I didn't need it to feel worthy. I don't want the house, Grandpa, I said, my voice steady, certain. I want to sell it, use the money for college. I want to become an engineer, the way I always dreamed. For a moment, he just looked at me. Then his lips curved into a smile, pride lighting his eyes like fire catching in dry wood. That's my grandson. Not long after, I was walking across the campus of a university in Chicago, officially enrolled as a civil engineering major. A dream once buried, now alive. The money from selling the Hollow Creek house, combined with Grandpa's unwavering support, made it possible. For years, I thought higher education belonged to other people, kids with perfect families, parents who believed in them, money that flowed easily. Not me. Never me. But now, here I was. The first days weren't easy. I sat in classrooms filled with students younger than me, their faces fresh, their confidence loud. I felt older, behind, carrying more shadows than anyone else in the room. The textbooks were heavy, the concepts foreign, and some nights I studied until dawn, red-eyed and exhausted. But I didn't quit. I refused to. Every time I felt doubt clawing at me, I thought of my mother's smile in that old photograph. I thought of Grandpa's hand on my shoulder, telling me I was stronger than I believed. I thought of the promise I made to myself. My past would not define my future. Chicago gave me more than knowledge. It gave me connection. I found friends, people who didn't know the boy I used to be, who didn't measure me against ghosts. They liked me for who I was now. I joined an engineering club, and there I met Emma. Smart, sharp, with a smile that could disarm anyone. She teased me endlessly for my obsessive note-taking, calling me the professor, and I found myself laughing in ways I hadn't in years. For the first time, I felt like I belonged. At home, Grandpa remained my anchor. More than family, he became my friend. We'd sit by the fireplace on quiet evenings, trading stories. He told me about my mother, about building his company from nothing, about the mistakes that shaped him. I told him about my dreams, about the life I wanted to build. The Ohio house was gone, the money safely covering my tuition. My father never called.
I didn't reach out.
Maybe one day forgiveness would come, but not yet. For now, my focus was here, on growth, on hope, on building something real.
2 years passed.
2 years since that Christmas night when the truth shattered everything. Chicago had become more than a city to me. It was home. Not because of its skyscrapers piercing the sky, not because of the noise of traffic or the smell of roasted peanuts on street corners, but because here in this place, I found myself. Now in my second year of engineering, I could see the dream forming into reality. A dream my father once crushed with excuses about money. But I had carved a new path. I had friends who stood beside me. I had a clear purpose. And for the first time, I felt something I had never dared to feel before. I deserved it. Meanwhile, back in Ohio, whispers drifted my way. Whispers of collapse. Gregory had lost his job at the insurance company. Susan no longer hosted her glittering parties. Ben, the pride of the Marston family, the golden child, had dropped out of college after only 1 semester. Their empire of comfort had crumbled, leaving only dust.
I didn't dwell on it.
The past was the past. I had learned not to let it chain me. But sometimes, the past doesn't wait for permission. Sometimes, it finds you anyway. It was late autumn. Leaves pressed against the library windows as I studied for midterms, a coffee cooling at my side. My phone buzzed. An Ohio number. Unknown. I hesitated, then answered. The voice on the other end froze me. Susan. Dorian, she said, weak, trembling. Gone was the arrogance, the sharpness I remembered. She sounded like someone whose spirit had been stripped bare. I know you're busy, but I need to talk to you. About the family. Family. The word landed like ice in my chest. Coming from her, it felt foreign. What's going on? I asked, my voice colder than I meant it to be. We're in trouble, she whispered. Real trouble. And I thought, maybe you could help. I let her speak. She told me everything, her words a fragile mix of desperation and clinging pride. After Grandpa cut them off, Gregory had lost his job, drowning in failure. Susan, unskilled and unprepared, couldn't find work. They had sold their possessions piece by piece to cover debts, but it wasn't enough. They no longer had the Hollow Creek house. They had moved into a cramped apartment at the edge of town, a place Susan described bitterly as unworthy of our family. And then her voice broke. Ben, he's struggling, Dorian. He's working at a fast food restaurant. But he doesn't know how to handle this kind of life. He needs help. A bitter laugh escaped me, not from amusement, but from irony.
Ben.
The boy who had everything. The one with new cars, endless toys, every comfort. The one they praised while I scraped by in silence. Now he stood where I once had, working shifts in a job I knew too well, tasting the same grind I endured at 18. A flicker of satisfaction stirred in me, but it vanished quickly, leaving only emptiness. Let me get this straight, I said, my tone calm, sharp. You're calling me for help. After everything? After Dad stole my house? After you told me I didn't deserve anything? You think I'll just forget the years you treated me like an outsider? Like a burden? There was silence. Then Susan's voice, barely a whisper. Dorian, I know we were wrong, but we're family. Ben's your brother. You can't turn your back on family. Family, I repeated, the word burning with bitterness. You and Dad never treated me like family. Dad stole the money meant for my education, meant for my life. And now you want me to help Ben, the one who always had everything while I had nothing. I took a breath, steady and final.
No, Susan.
Let Ben learn the way I did. Let him stand on his own. I don't owe you anything. And I hung up.
The phone was still warm in my hand. My heart pounded hard against my chest.
Her words echoed in my head, family. Ben needs help. But this time, they held no power over me. Not after everything. 2 years of silence had already built the distance. Now it was a wall. Rumors drifted to me from Ohio. Quiet whispers carried by old acquaintances, fragments of a life I no longer belonged to. I never sought them out. My days were already full. Classes at the university, late nights buried in blueprints, projects at Grandpa's company, evenings walking with Emma through the chilly streets of Chicago. But still, the rumors crept in. Like cold drafts seeping under a locked door, reminders of a world I had left behind. My father, Gregory, had once carried himself with calm authority, a man who believed control was his birthright. For years, his position at the insurance company funded their comfort. Susan played the proud housewife, and Ben, the golden boy, lived in effortless abundance. Then came that Christmas night, the night Grandpa cut the cord. From there, everything began to unravel. The company hit hard times. Gregory, distracted by the storm inside his own family, lost his grip. Within 6 months, he was fired. And he never found his way back. The savings he had hoarded, money stolen from Grandpa, stolen from me, was squandered. Cars, vacations, parties. All for appearances. All for pride. When the money ran dry, so did the illusion. Susan couldn't adapt. She had built her identity on perfection, not survival. Her skills were limited to hosting soirees and browsing boutiques. When they were forced out of Hollow Creek, the house I had sold to buy my future, they landed in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. Susan called it unworthy. The place was run down. Stained walls. Leaking pipes. The kind of home I once prayed for as a child, yet she despised it. They sold everything to stay afloat. Ben's car. His collectibles. Even Susan's prized jewelry. Still, the debts kept climbing: mortgages, overdue bills, unpaid loans. And Ben, who once carried the weight of the Marston name, who was celebrated as the future of the family, collapsed under the slightest pressure. He dropped out of college after 1 semester. Couldn't take the discipline. Couldn't handle the responsibility. He worked at a fast food restaurant, forced into the kind of job he once mocked me for. Long shifts, impatient customers, the endless repetition of survival. He couldn't cope. Coworkers complained he was careless, slow, distracted. 3 months in, he was fired. From then on, he bounced between jobs, never lasting long enough to matter. I didn't search for these stories. They reached me anyway, passed along by Grandpa's friends, by people in town who shared their downfall as a cautionary tale. Susan was trying to sell trinkets online. Gregory had taken part-time work at an auto shop, hands blackened by grease. Pride eroded. They were living in scarcity. For the first time, they were facing what I had known all along: struggle, hunger, the grind of survival. A month after Susan's call, a letter arrived. This time from my father. It wasn't an apology. It was a plea. He wrote that they were on the edge of bankruptcy, that the rent on their apartment hadn't been paid, that eviction was closing in. Ben had spiraled. After losing his 3rd job, he abandoned any search for work, instead drinking, drifting with bad company, causing trouble in town. The words blurred as I read them. He said they had no one else, that I was their last hope. He repeated the word family, as if saying it often enough could summon something inside me. I sat on the edge of the king-size bed in Grandpa's mansion, letter trembling in my hands. Even after 2 years, I wasn't used to this kind of comfort. And as I read, every sentence cut like glass. Memories came back sharp and raw. Nights in the attic, lying on a creaky bed, listening to silence, wondering why I wasn't loved. Every time Susan reminded me I wasn't good enough. Every moment Dad compared me to Ben, holding me up as proof of failure. And that Christmas night, the night I learned that everything I longed for, every chance I dreamed of, had been stolen by the 2 people who were supposed to protect me. I showed Grandpa the letter. He read it quietly, his eyes darkening the way they had that night 2 years ago. "What are you going to do?" he asked, his voice steady. He never pressured me.
Never force me.
But I knew his anger at Gregory still burned. I'm not going to help them, I said. My voice didn't waver. They had their chance. Ben had everything I didn't. A car, a warm room, parents' love. If he has to struggle now, let him. I had to claw my way out alone. I don't owe them anything. Grandpa nodded.
Silent.
But I saw approval in his eyes. He had once threatened to sue Gregory to reclaim what was stolen. I had chosen to walk away then. And now I chose not to look back. While Gregory's family collapsed, I rose. Chicago became my ground of triumph. I aced my midterms. Emma surprised me with a small party, filling the room with laughter, warmth, and music. She wasn't just a friend anymore. She had become a constant reminder that I was enough, that I could be loved without conditions. At Grandpa's company, I was trusted with more responsibility, bigger projects, bigger risks. I even led a small construction job in the suburbs, watching buildings rise from drawings I helped bring to life. Proof that I didn't need validation from Gregory or Susan. Proof that I could build a future with my own 2 hands. And at night I began writing. Not a memoir, but a book of lessons. On resilience. On finding worth in the ruins. On turning scars into strength. I didn't know if it would ever be published. But writing it felt like stitching wounds closed. Every word, a step toward healing. One winter day, as snow swept through downtown Chicago, I saw him.
Ben.
He stood on a street corner, shivering in a thin jacket. His face was hollow, his eyes sunken. He looked older, defeated. I froze, unsure whether to approach. But he spotted me first. His eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen in years. Hope. Dorian, he called, his voice hoarse. How are you? I nodded, keeping distance.
I've fine, Ben.
You? He gave a broken smile. The arrogance was gone. Only weariness remained. Not great, he admitted. Things aren't like they used to be. Can you help me? Just a little. I don't have anyone else. I looked at him. For a moment, I remembered all the times he was favored, while I was cast aside. Ben, I said, calm, firm. I had to stand on my own when no one reached out to me. You can too.
Get a job.
Learn responsibility. Don't look at me to fix what your family broke. And then I turned. I walked away through the snow-covered streets. I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, but because for the first time, I had chosen myself.